fan of classic Castlevania, I'm talking NES Castlevania, then I've got a treat for you, because I just discovered a game recently that feels like a love letter to those classic NES Castlevania games, and that game just so happens to be called Lords of Exile. This is an indie game. I'm going to be reviewing it here today. I'm going to be going over the info on the game, I'm going to be going over the story that's in here, I'm going to be going over the gameplay, and then at the end I'm going to give you my final verdict on it. So, without further ado, what's going on, my fellow Belmonts? It's the Mad Belmont here, and this is my review of Lords of Exile. Lords of Exile is a 2D side-scrolling action platformer that is presented in an 8-bit NES style. It is developed by the folks at Squidbit Works and published by the folks at Pixel Heart. This game is on every single platform, PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo systems. And this game is very, very affordable too. On the consoles, it's $20, but on PC, it retails for $15. So you are getting a good deal either way that you spin it. This game is super portable, it's super cheap, super good too. And speaking of it being good, let me explain why. Let's talk about the story first. The story for Lords of Exile can be summed up right in the intro of the game, actually. So this game is set in the land of Exilia. It is a Eastern-inspired fictional land, and this land is being overrun by creatures of the night as well as samurai. And they are in this huge war. It's ravaging the land, and there's this evil warlord. His name's Gallagher. Now, he had a loyal lieutenant named Gabriel, but Gallagher, while going through one of the villages, kills Gabriel's wife, his betrothed, if you will. And so, Gabriel, who was initially loyal to Gallagher, turns against him and embarks on a quest to avenge the loss of his betrothed, and he's out to also liberate Exilia from the forces of Gallagher. So this game handles themes of revenge, loss, and the struggle against tyranny, which, for a game that is based on games from the 80s, it having a story like this, I love to see that. And I could also see this being a theme for a game back then, you know, like, it definitely has more of an emphasis on the story, like a Ninja Gaiden, for instance. That game had a pretty heavy emphasis on story for a game back then, and like later Castlevania games eventually would, that were in the same sort of style. So it's nice to see that for a game that is inspired by classic action platformers to put some sort of an emphasis on the story like this. And it's simple enough for you to easily follow, and you're definitely feeling it. If you're feeling that satisfaction when you finally complete the deed and you beat this game, you feel that sense of accomplishment, you know, because of what it sums up at the beginning of the game. But now, let's go into the gameplay. The gameplay for Lords of Exile consists of you going through 8 different levels, of which they get progressively harder as you go through the game, and then you go from the start of the level to the end of the level, platforming, hitting things in the face, hitting them with sub-weapons until you reach the boss. And once you defeat the boss of that level, you move on to the next one. Pretty simple stuff. It is just like it was back in the classic Castlevania days on the NES. But where this game differentiates itself from those 8-bit Castlevania games is in these ways. There are midway fights that are right smack dab in the middle of the level, and they're not in every level, but you'll know when they're there, because there will be like this statue, and you go up and you interact with it, and you get locked into an encounter. Once you defeat this encounter, you then get an ability that you can use in future levels in the game. For instance, one gave me a double jump, one gave me a shadow that I could summon, and then use it to clear blocks that are in my way. Things like that. And then you also have the fact that while this game is presented in an 8-bit style, it has the physics and the feel of a 16-bit game. This is really cool because while yes, 8-bit feeling action platformers are pretty well made, I do love how good those 16-bit action platformers felt, and the fact that I get the feel of one of those in a game that looks like an 8-bit classic Castlevania game, oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I also love the fact that there are these little campfires throughout the levels, and once you get to one of these little campfires, you can interact with it, and then you can bring up what is essentially a shop right in the middle of whatever level that you're at. It usually represents a checkpoint in the level, and what these things do is you can get one of 3 different items that are in these shops, and these change as you go on through the levels. Like, one will have a slight heal, one will a slight heal, a full heal, and maybe like a sub weapon. Then the next one will have a full heal, a sub weapon, and a rotating shield of shurikens, you know, things like that. So it's things like that that kind of differentiate this game from a typical action platformer from the NES days, and I really like that. I like that this game does that, and I also love the boss fights in this game. The boss fights are designed beautifully well. They are insanely fun to fight, but they're not too hard. Everything in this game, from the levels to the bosses, everything is so well balanced, so well designed. It is a beautiful game. Now, the only issue that I have with this entire game is the fact that there is really no penalty for dying. You die in this game and you just go back to the last checkpoint that you were in. You don't get punished by having items removed from you or anything like that. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. I just would have rather had the option to make it that much harder on myself. You know, games like Bloodstained gave you such a perfect option right there. You had the option to make it easier if you wanted to, if you were new to games like that, or you had the option to make it harder if you were used to games like that, like I am. So, I just wish I would have had an option to do that. But hey, you know what? Even with that being said, this is still a phenomenal game. If you love some classic Castlevania and you're craving for more of that gameplay style, this is the game for you. I'm telling you, because I was craving more of that. And then when I bought this game earlier this month and I went and purchased it, downloaded it, I started playing it. I was going to play it for like 5 minutes, and because of how well made this game is, it hooked me. I absolutely love it, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for that style of game. We have arrived here at Belmont's verdict, and after weighing everything in, the story and how detailed it is, the gameplay, the lack of difficulty options, the lack of penalty for dying in this game, I have made my verdict. And my verdict is that this game receives a 9 out of 10. It is a damn good game, and if you do not have this game in your library, regardless of the platform, you need to get it. So, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to leave a like on it. It will greatly help me out. And subscribe if you're new around here. But, with that being said, have fun on the hunt, my fellow Belmonts. I will see you in the next video. And peace out.